Today is National Equal Pay Day, a symbolic day designed to point out that on average, a woman would have to work all of 2016 and up until today to earn the same amount of money as her male counterpart. Seem fair? Exactly. Right now, white women in this country earn about 83% as much as men, black women 75%, and Hispanic women 60%. A bleak finding, but there's hope. Today, for the 11th time, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, a Democrat from Connecticut, reintroduced the Paycheck Fairness Act, and First Daughter Ivanka Trump tweeted out an Equal Pay Day reminder that we all have to work to close the gender pay gap. But on the flip side, just last week, Donald Trump signed an executive order rolling back a 2014 Fair Pay and Safe Workplaces order, part of which was meant to protect women in the workplace. It's that divide which prompted Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Young to write an open letter entitled A Plea to Ivanka Trump, You Can Make a Difference. Shirley, who I might add is a WGBH contributor, joins me now. Nice to see you, Shirley. Along with Jessica Taco, Senior Vice President at Rasky Partners and a close personal friend of the Pence family. Nice to see you, too. And Patricia Fletcher, founder of PSD Network and CEO of Dr. Patty Fletcher, where she says she and her team help leaders change the world. I didn't mean I question you. I didn't mean she says, but it's good to see you, too, Patty. So you wrote to this woman who you're sort of obsessed with. Is that a fair statement?
Love-hate relationship.
Okay. Give the gist. For people who haven't met, what's the gist of what you're saying there, Shirley?
Well, I made the case that Ivanka Trump, last summer, she introduced her father at the Republican National Convention, and she talked about equal pay. And it was a really important statement about, I actually think that helped him win a lot of female voters that night. She did a great job, I thought, in making the case that he would fight for equal pay for women. He would fight for affordable child care. And to make the case that now that she's an official White House employee and an advisor, she's got an office in the West Wing, she alone can make a really big difference on getting equal pay in this country done.
Well, I agree she probably could, but Jessica, look at this juxtaposition. She tweets out this thing today with this graph with 82% and, 68%, 62% blacks, Latinos. She does that, and as I say, a week ago, her father signs this 2014 revocation of the Fair Pay and Safe Workplaces order, gets rid of paycheck transparency, eliminates the ban on forced arbitration in sexual harassment cases. It's almost like they're not talking to each other. And how can she be taken seriously if the man she's advising is going in the exact opposite direction?
Well, there's a lot more to the rollback of that measure than what's been mentioned in the media.
Like what?
That was one of 16 congressional review acts that was passed by the House and the Senate as part of pulling back Obama regulations that occurred since his administration.
But I'm right about the impact on women.
At the end of the day, in that perspective, the reason that they're rolling back a number of Obama regulations is so they can re-legislate and find more common ground. But the first thing they have to do is be able to roll back the current regulations so that they can go work together to create broad-based solutions.
Do you think he's still going to do great things for women? He just was rolling that thing back.
I think that the issue is more comprehensive than that. You have to look at not just the equal pay discussion. You have to look at the child leave policies that we have, family leave. We're the 41st out of the 41 developed countries. We have the lowest amount of paid time off. You have to look at. Well, that's part of a comprehensive way that you can improve things for families and equal pay.
Can we just stay on the pay thing for a second? You tweeted today, Patty, it's really difficult to understand why pay equity isn't good for all. Let me amend that and say it's really difficult to understand why it's taken so long.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you were here a couple of months ago, the two of you. I am stunned that there's this, to say there's incremental progress at best is an understatement. Why is this so impossible? Donald Trump or no Donald Trump, Barack Obama, whomever.
Exactly.
What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, in talking with Dr. Gabby Berlaku, who is a millennial who really focuses on this area, what she said to me as I was prepping for the show is, my generation can't believe that your generation is still talking about this and haven't figured it out.
Why are you still talking about it? Why hasn't it been fixed?
You know what? It's a great, great question.
Well, what's the great, great answer?
Yeah, the great, great answer is, I don't freaking know.
Do any of you have any idea why there's still this kind of gap? Why do you think?
I have a lot of theories on it. The first thing I want to note is there's an economist named Claudia Glauden. She's actually out of Harvard. And she found that on a salary basis, there is a difference in pay, what we had mentioned earlier, the 83%.
Okay, but
on an hourly basis, men actually make 90% of what women make, so 90 cents on the dollar.
Men are underpaid compared to women?
on an hourly basis. And so the theory behind that is that the way that you're taking and you're calculating the gender gap is you're looking at folks that work over 35 hours. You're comparing them with that. But once you
meaning
get,
it's not quite as bad as it appears, you're saying.
Once you get from the space between 40 hours per week to 80 hours per week, it is disproportionately overpaid to those who work over 40 hours a week. And so in that factor, a lot of times those are men who don't have children,
I think Patty's
who don't have families.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just like, I get it. So there's this thing called technology. And what we can do with technology is we can capture data. And that research that she put out was very much argued against. There were lots of questions around it, and just like there is with a lot of data.
But give me the short version of what's wrong.
So the short version is that this can be fixed. We just have to capture the data. The issue is accountability for correcting
well,
it.
I'm going to talk about some of the things that some of you have praised. Before we leave the federal level, though, there was a very interesting piece in the New York Times the other day about a couple of photos that some people have said were awkward moments for the Trump administration, including a guy you worked for and know very well, Vice President Pence, too. This first is a bunch of guys standing around when the president's signing an anti-abortion executive order. The following one is a photo of the president and vice president, an all-male Freedom Caucus, even though there are some women in the Freedom Caucus, talking about taking away requirements in health insurance cover maternity, newborn, and pregnancy. The theory of the writer in the New York Times was this wasn't an awkward mistake. This was intentional on the part of the Trump administration because their desire is to appeal to men in this country who want men to be making decisions about women's health and women's faith. Do you buy that or no?
No.
Why?
I mean, what I would like to see is women generally in our country getting more involved in democracy. You had 90 million Americans who did not vote in 2016. 60% of them were women, unfortunately. So you can blame Trump for who sits around the table in a picture, but at the end of the day, if you look at the 2016 election, there were 41,000 people less, even though the population increased, that voted versus 2012. So Americans are not engaged. Americans are not engaged, and they need to be more engaged if they're going to complain about the outcomes.
Stay on that picture. You were nodding your head. Do you agree with that woman who wrote that piece?
Yes, I actually agree. I do think it is a strategy, but I also agree with Jessica. I think that I think it's a strategy on the part of the administration, but I think women can turn it around and be active. They should be angered and not feel victimized by the phone, but feel empowered to change that photo.
Well, when you say women feel empowered to do this, the discussion I've had with two of you, not with you yet, but with you in a second, is you both have celebrated, you and your column, you here and I'm sure elsewhere, some of the things, for example, Charlie Baker a year ago signed allegedly the strongest equal pay law in the country. The mayor is responsible for these forums and all this stuff where there's some voluntary disclosure from companies. But to me, as a non-woman, I think we all know that, there's no teeth in any of this stuff. I know it's well-intentioned, but it's sort of like, the turtle is going to get there when we're all dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that unfair?
No, it's not unfair. And, kind of going back to the data and stuff, it's very, very difficult to implement this because of what we talked about last time, which is the comparable job challenges. That's a real problem. So what one position does is different from what another position does, even though they have the same name, right? So that's a challenge. But I do think that there is credence in talking about what can women do. I was at Mobile World Congress a few weeks ago in Barcelona. It's one of the largest technology conferences there is. So it was 108,000 people there, by the way. But let me just say, Pat Milligan, who heads up Why Women Thrive research at Mercer, asked the audience of women, how many of you, when you go for a job promotion or a job, do you look at the person who's going to hire you and say, what are you going to do to ensure that I get paid equally or that my career is supported?
So she's basically saying you have to be a stronger advocate for yourself. But speaking of technology, do you see the time? This is for all three of you. I guess the final question is how hopeful you are. Speaking of technology, which is sort of the modern business, did you read the piece in the New York Times about the bro culture that exists in the technology industries? And the question I guess I have is, if in modern industries there's a bro culture, how are we ever going to reform and bring old industries into the 21st century? So going down, if you're hopeful, tell me why.
I mean, I'm hopeful. I mean, I actually think the pay equity legislation that was passed makes a difference. I think encouraging employers to do salary reviews, and what the mayor is doing, Walsh is doing, is important. I think salary reviews is important. You have to put sunshine on what people are making. Before you make the changes. Exactly. Okay. And I think employers, I think a lot of them don't realize how big the pay gap is, and once they see it, they'll fix it.
Are you hopeful?
I'm hopeful.
Why?
I think we need to take a deep breath. It's only been 9 weeks into this administration.
Well, not just about Trump. I'm talking about the state and the city are run by Democrats.
All of it.
Well, not the
all of
states
it. But I would like to see our government generally focused on a lot of the issues that impact pay. So stronger economy, stronger homeland security, better health care, working out
Lifting
the Affordable
all
Care
boats
Act.
is your
And
theory.
I don't like to see women get just blocked into social issues, or as a woman being blocked into an equal pay issue. I look at American issues as women's issues as well, and vice versa. So I think it's improving the overall economy so that we can all compete, no matter what gender we are or what race.
You have the last 15 seconds, Billy.
Thank you. So I do see women really, really coming together, right? We now more than ever, women are going, okay, great, I'm going to run for office. So I do think there's change. But when change like this comes, there's always pain. There's always pain in the beginning.
Okay, happy, not quite equal pay day. Shirley.
Thanks for having us.
Jessica, great to see you. Patty, you
Thank
as well.
you.
Thanks to all three of you.